Hey, what's up guys? This video is for the test review for sections 8.5, 8.6, and 8.7, and it's all about factoring, polynomials, and solving quadratic equations by factoring. So let's go ahead and look at number 1. So the instruction says you guys want to factor each polynomial if possible, and if you guys cannot factor the polynomial, you guys can write the word prime. When we see the word prime, it means you cannot factor that polynomial. So we have, for number 1, a binomial 6r squared t minus 3r squared. And the first thing you need to look for is if the terms in that polynomial have a common factor. And we want to factor out the greatest common factor. So I noticed that both terms have the same variables, r and t. And when you look at the numbers, the coefficients, 6 and 3, the number that goes into 6 and 3, the greatest number or greatest common factor is 3. So when you factor out, I'm going to use a parenthesis like this. I'm going to take out or factor out the variables, the r and the t. That's what they have in common. When you guys are factoring out a variable, make sure that you guys factor out the one with the lowest exponent. So r has a 1 for the second term right here. So that's the lowest exponent. So our 1 exponent for r is the one we're going to take out or factor out. And the t, well, the first term has an exponent of 1, so that's the lowest one. So you always want to factor out the variable with the lowest exponent. And for the coefficients, you can factor out a 3. So, and that's because 3 goes into 6 and 3 goes into 3. So now that you guys have the greatest common factor outside of the parentheses, you will divide. 6 divided by 3. That will be 2. Remember that you took out an r, but you had an r squared. So you're going to have one r left inside the parentheses. And you took out the t, so you're not going to have a t inside of the parentheses. Then the second term, you guys will divide. We have a negative 3 minus 3. Negative 3 divided by 3, that'll be negative 1. You guys took out the r, and you guys took out the t. And since you have a t squared, well, you guys have a t left inside the parentheses. So there's a t, 1t inside the parentheses. I don't need that 1 next to the t, so I'm just going to rewrite my answer. And my answer will be the factor, greatest common factor, 3rt times the quantity of 2r minus t. So this is the answer for number 1. Number 2, look at the polynomial. We have 4 terms. We have a polynomial with 4 different terms. When you guys have 4 terms, one of the ways you guys can factor is by using factoring by grouping. So you guys will make 2 groups. I'm going to make step number 1. I'm going to make my 2 groups like this with the plus in the middle. I'm going to take the first 2 terms. So I have this 2. 12a squared minus 15ab, and I'm going to write that inside the first parenthesis like this. Then I'm going to take the second 2 terms, and it is a negative. There's a minus 16a plus 20b, so I'm going to take that inside the second parenthesis just like this. So my second step, when you guys are factoring by grouping, you need to factor out the GCFs. Just like number 1, we need to find what they have in common for the 2 groups or the 2 parentheses. So for the first group, they have a common in a, and 3 goes into 12 and 3 goes into 15. So I'm going to factor out the 3 with the a. So when you guys take out an a, the first term, well, first you divide. 12 divided by 3, that's going to be 4. And you guys keep 1a inside the parentheses because you took 1a out. The second one will be negative 15 divided by 3. That'll be negative 5. You guys took out the a, and you keep the b because you didn't factor out a b, so you bring down the b. Second binomial, first of all, there's a negative in front of the first term, so we need to factor this out, the negative. And when you guys multiply by the positive outside the parentheses, negative times positive, that's going to be negative. And also, guys, when you look at the coefficients, you guys can factor out a 4. So I'm going to factor out the 4. They don't have a variable in common. The 2 terms, a and b, they're not the same term or the same variable. So you guys take out the negative 4, and you guys are going to divide. Negative 16 divided by negative 4, that will be positive 4a, and 20b divided by negative 4, that's going to be negative 5b. Now when you guys look at the parentheses, make sure they are equal. That's how you know you're doing this right. If they're not equal, there's a mistake. Go back and fix your mistake. Now the last step, when you guys factor by grouping, you will make two groups, two binomials multiplying each other. I'm going to take what's outside of each parenthesis, so the 3a, and I'm going to put it inside of the first one, the first parenthesis, and the minus 4. Negative 4 goes inside the parenthesis. So my first binomial is 3a minus 4. And the second binomial is the one that's repeating, the 4a minus 5b. And I know, guys, you have two of them, but you are not going to use a square. So even though you have two of the same parentheses, don't use a square, you just write it down once. So my answer will be these two factors, 3a minus 4 times 4a minus 5. Number 3, you guys have a trinomial. We have 3 different terms, and you guys want to factor out what they have in common. So I noticed they have in common an x, so I'm going to take out an x, and also the 9, 18, and 24, well, you guys can divide by 3. So you look for the greatest common factor. So I'm going to use a parenthesis like this. I'm going to take out the x first of all, and you always take out the variable with the lowest exponent. So this x is the lowest exponent right here. So I'm going to use an x outside like this, and you take out the 3. So you guys are going to divide. 9 divided by 3, that's going to be 3. You guys keep the a, and you guys have an x squared because you took out one x. So from that x cubed, you're going to have 2 left, x squared. The next one, the next term, 18 divided by 3, that'll be positive 6. You guys keep the b and 1x because you took 1x out. And the next one will be 24 divided by 3. That will be positive 8. You guys keep the c, and you guys took out the x over here. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, inside the parentheses, it is a trinomial and the highest exponent is 2. So we have a quadratic trinomial. You're right. You guys actually have a quadratic, actually a trinomial, but I'm looking at the variable a. So here, since we have two different variables together, even though you have a squared, it's actually not a trinomial. You guys will have to add the exponents of the a and the x. But what I'm trying to say is, don't try to use the x method or the x diagram method that I showed you guys in class for this trinomial, because first of all, the last term doesn't have a square. The c, the variable, doesn't have a square, and that's what you need when you have different variables. You need a square at the beginning and a square at the end. So all of this is what you can do. You guys can factor out the 3x, and that's all you can do. So my answer is there. Now number 4, if you guys look at this trinomial, well, you have a j squared at the beginning, and you have a variable squared at the end. So this one actually is a trinomial that you guys can factor using the x diagram, because you guys have a square at the beginning and a square at the end, and we have 3 different terms. Now for this method to factor, we're going to use the x diagram. So I'm going to take my a value, which is 1, b is negative 9, and c is the last term. So I'm using the x diagram. So step number 1, we multiply a times c. So 1 times negative 10, that's going to be negative 10. b is negative 9, and we need 2 numbers that multiply to negative 10 and actually add up to negative 9, or that you combine to negative 9. That will be 1 and negative 10. Now you guys need to double check. 1 times negative 10, that will be negative 10 when you multiply, and 1 minus 10 is negative 9 when you guys combine. So the second step, you will write your 2 binomials like this. Now notice the a value is 1. Let's go up to the trinomial. So I'm going to bring down the a value 1j and 1j. And also keep in mind, remember that we have a k squared at the end of the trinomial. So we need to write down a k here and a k over here. Now you guys are going to bring down your factors. The plus 1 and the minus 10. Couple things. We don't need that 1 in front of the j, and we don't need that 1 in front of the k. We don't have to do the third step when you guys simplify or reduce the binomial, because a is 1. So we don't have to worry about that step. But I don't need that 1 in front of the j and the k. So my answer will be the quantity of j plus k times the quantity of j minus 10k. Number 5, you have another trinomial, g squared minus 2g minus 63. We don't have a variable squared at the end, but it is a quadratic with a trinomial, so we can use the x diagram. My a value will be 1 next to the g squared, b is the one in the middle, and c is your last term. So step 1, you guys are going to use your x diagram. Multiply 1 times negative 63. That would be negative 63. B is negative 2. Two factors that multiply to negative 63 and they add up to negative 2. I'm thinking of negative 9 and 7. So negative 9 times 7, that would be negative 63. And negative 9 plus 7, that would be negative 2. So make sure you guys check this step. Make sure it works. Second step, since a is 1, I don't have to reduce the binomials, but I need to bring down the a value, 1g and the 1g. And you guys have your factors, minus 9 and the plus 7. I don't need that 1 next to the g, so my answer will be g minus 9 times g plus 7. Number 6, well, it is a trinomial, but it's not in order. Remember that standard form for a polynomial, you want the highest exponent, the term with the highest exponent first. So this is not in order. First of all, I'm going to write down everything in standard form. So I'm going to take the r squared first. Highest exponent is first. And then you descend. You go down on the exponents. So the next lowest one will be the 18r. And the last term is your number 32, or the constant. Now we do have a, b, and c. So a is the first term, b is the one in the middle, and c is the last term. So we can use the x diagram. You guys multiply a times c, that's 32. B is 18. You guys find two numbers that multiply to 32 and add up to 18. I'm thinking about 16 times 2. So you guys can check. 16 times 2, 32. And 16 plus 2, 18. It works. So now we go to the second step. So you guys write down your two binomials. And we have the a value is 1. So I'm going to bring down the 1r, and the factors, positive 16 and positive 2. I don't need those ones in front of the r. So I have r plus 16 times r plus 2. And there's the answer. Number 7, same thing. You guys have a trinomial, but it is in standard form, so you don't have to worry about the order. So my a value, even though we have an a squared, we still have an a value, which is the number. So we have a 1, invisible 1. B is the one in the middle, and C is the one at the end. So I am going to use my X diagram method. I multiply A times C. 1 times 24 is 24. B is 10. So you guys find two numbers, two factors. I'm thinking of 6 times 4, that's 24. And 6 plus 4 is 10. Now guys, in this step, don't give up. If the first set of numbers don't work, you try again. If they don't work the second time, you try again. But you guys try to find the numbers that actually work. Don't give up. In the second step, you guys are going to have your two binomials like this. A is 1, so I'm going to have 1a, and I'm using a because that's the variable given in the trinomial. We have an a squared. And the factors, positive 6 and positive 4. I don't need that 1 in front of the a, so I'm going to have a plus 6 times a plus 4. So for number 8, if you notice the trinomial, a is not 1, you guys have an 8, so we have to be careful with that value. The last term doesn't have a variable, so we're good. All we have to do is we are going to label my a, b, and c. So a is the first term, b is the one in the middle, and c is your last term. So we are going to use the 3 steps to factor by using the X diagram. And the third step will be you are going to simplify the binomials. You are going to divide by the greatest common factor. So we have to be careful when a is not 1. Again, a is 8 for this trinomial. So first, let's go ahead and multiply a times c. So we have 8 times -3, that's -24. b will be -10, that's the middle term. So here's the b, -10. So two numbers are multiplied to -12, -24, and they combine to -10. That will be -12 and 2. Make sure you guys check your work. In this step, it's very important that it actually works, and check your signs. So -12 times 2, that will be -24, and -12 plus 2, that will be -10. So now, step 2, you guys are going to write your two binomials, and keep in mind, a is not 1, it is a positive 8. So you guys will bring down the 8 with the variable b, 8b in each parenthesis. Now you guys bring down your factors, -12 and the positive 2. You guys look at the binomials, and if you can reduce the binomials, you have to reduce. You have to divide by their greatest common factor. So the 8 and the 12, you guys can divide by 4. That's reducing the binomial. And over here, the 8 and the 2, well, you guys can reduce by 2. You guys can divide. So we're doing the third step when a is not 1, and we have to use the X diagram to factor. So my third step, I'm going to divide 8 divided by 4. That's going to be 2b minus 12 divided by 4. That would be -3, or 3 here. And the next one will be a divided by 2. That's going to be 4b, and 2 divided by 2 will be 1. My answer will be these two factors when I factor the trinomial and a is not 1. So here's another trinomial. When a is not 1, the a value will be 6 right here. 6m squared plus 7m minus 3. So you guys are going to multiply a times c. So my a value is the one with the m squared, b is the one in the middle with the m term, and c is the last one. So 6 times -3, that'll be -18. M is 7, positive 7. So now we have to find those two factors that will multiply to -18, and they add up to 7. Now, a trick is if the top number is negative, that means one of the factors has to be negative, and just make sure that they do combine to positive 7. So I'm going to go and check the different factors of -18, the numbers that multiply. So I know that -1 times 18 is -18, but that's not going to give me 7. -2 times 9 is -18. Oh, right here, I have -2 times 9 will be -18. And when you guys combine the numbers, -2 plus 9, that would be positive 7. So I'm going to use those two factors, -2 and the positive 9. So keep in mind, make sure you double check. When you multiply, -2 times 9 is -18. And -2 plus 9, that's going to give you guys positive 7. So now you guys are going to write down your two binomials, and you bring down the a value with the variable. So a is 6. I put a 6m. My factors will be -2 and the positive 9. Now you guys need to check if you can simplify the binomials, if you can divide. So we can. The first one we can divide by 2, and the second binomial we can divide by 3. Make sure you guys check if you guys can divide. So when I divide the first one, the first parenthesis, 6 divided by 2, that will be 3m minus 1, and the second one will be 2m plus 3. So my two factors will be 3m minus 1 times 2m plus 3. Number 10, the instruction says you want to solve each equation. So now we need to solve for the value of the variable. So we are going to get the variable by itself. we're going to have to factor, and we're going to have to solve. So in other words, we are solving by factoring. So first, the quadratic trinomial. I know it's a quadratic because the highest exponent is 2. In order to solve by factoring, we need a 0 on one side. Right now, we don't have a 0. So I'm going to do the opposite of the 56. Let me just zoom in here a little bit more. And we're going to subtract 56 from both sides. Make sure that you guys check if you guys have like terms. We do not have like terms on the left side. So I'm going to bring down the variables. Q squared minus Q minus 56 equal to 0. The 56 cancels on the right side. Now I need to factor this trinomial. Notice A is 1, so I don't have to worry about dividing the binomials. But I need to multiply the 1, A, times the C. So I'm going to do my X diagram here. That's going to be negative 56. My B value, the one in the middle, is negative 1. There's an invisible 1 next to the Q, so it is negative 1. I need two factors that multiply to negative 56, and it gives me, when you combine negative 1, so I'm thinking of negative 7 and 8. But hold on, I'm checking the signs. Negative 7 plus 8, that will be positive 1. So what I need to do is just change the signs. Make the negative, the 8 negative, and then you guys make the 7 positive. So here's the negative 8, and 7 will be positive. Just double check. 7 times negative 8, that's negative 56, and 7 minus 8 will be negative 1. So my second step, or my next step, is you guys make your two binomials, bring down the equal to 0 because you're solving. My A value is 1, so you guys have 1Q, 1Q. And my factors are positive 7 and negative 8. Now, this is only factoring, so the next step, now you guys are going to solve. So we're going to use the zero product property. You're going to equal every factor to 0. So you guys take the first binomial, 1Q, I don't need that 1, Q plus 7 equals 0. And the second one will be Q minus 8 equal to 0. You guys solve. So on the first equation, you guys subtract 7, and we get Q equals negative 7. And the second equation, you guys add 8, and my value Q will be equal to 8. So my two answers, we have two different answers, negative 7, comma 8. So I know I have two answers because this is a quadratic equation. Remember, the highest exponent is 2. The degree is 2. So that means that we have two answers. So we have a negative 7 and 8. We use brackets because we have values of x's. Do not use parentheses because it's not a point. Number 11, you guys want to solve, and you guys do have a quadratic equation. There's a degree of 2, and we do have equal to 0. So this one is already set up for you guys to factor. That's how we solve it. We're solving by factoring. So first, you need to check every time you guys have an A other than 1. So this is not 1, the A is 2. Make sure that you guys check if you can factor out a UCF. So I'm looking at the numbers, the coefficients 2, 10, and 12. And I notice I can factor out a 2. So you guys do that first. So I have a parentheses equal to 0. I do factor out the 2 here. So I'm going to start dividing the 2 by the 1 I factor out. So 2 divided by 2, that's 1. B squared, I don't need that 1. And then you guys divide 10 by 2. That's going to be 5. B, and the next one, positive 12 divided by 2. That's going to be a positive 6. So you guys need to factor the trinomial. So remember that the 1, the A value is 1. So I'm going to multiply 1 times the C value. I'm just going to put this here so you guys can see. There's an invisible 1. And we're going to use the X diagram. So 1 times 6 is 6. The B term is 5, the one in the middle. So there's the B. And you guys need to find the factors that will multiply to 6 and add up to 5. So we have 2 and 3. They multiply to 6 and they add to 5. So the second step, you guys are going to make your two binomials, bring down the equal to 0. And A is 1, so I'm going to have 1B, 1B, and my factors, positive 2, positive 3. Now you guys remember the factor, the GCF that we factor out. So this one, you also have to bring it down. So I'm going to have a 2 outside of the parentheses. The next step is to solve. So we're going to use the zero product property to solve for the variable. You're going to equal everything to 0. So we do have a 2 outside the parentheses. So you guys have to equal that to 0. 2 equal to 0. But guess what? That right there, 2 equals 0, is false. It's not true. They're not the same number, and you guys don't have a variable to solve. So this one, cross it out, because you guys cannot solve for that equation, and you guys don't have a variable, and it's not equal. It's false. So you ignore that one, and you guys go to the next factor. So we have a b plus 2 equal to 0, and you guys can solve this one. You guys have a variable, so we can get that variable by itself. And then you guys take the next factor, b plus 3 equal to 0. So let's go ahead and solve. Go back to the first equation, subtract 2, so b equals 2. And the second equation, subtract 3, so b equals negative 3. So my two answers, using brackets, negative 3, comma, negative 2. Keep in mind that we try to keep the numbers in order from lowest to highest. So negative 3 is smaller than negative 2. And we use brackets for our solutions. Number 12, you guys also have a quadratic equation. We do not have equal to 0. So I'm going to take this number to the other side so I can start factoring. So I'm going to do the opposite, subtract 14 from both sides. So we have a 2n squared minus 3n minus 14. They're not like terms, equal to 0. 14 minus 14 is 0. A is not 1. So I'm going to check. Can I factor out a GCF? 2, 3, and 14. Well, 2 goes into 14, but 2 doesn't go into 3. 3 doesn't go into 14. So they don't have a common factor. All right, so let's just multiply A times C. 2 times negative 14. And I'm going to use the X diagram. So 2 times negative 14 is negative 28. B is negative 3. And you guys find the two factors. And I'm thinking of negative 7 and 4. So when you multiply negative 7 times 4, that's negative 28. And negative 7 plus 4, that's negative 3. Make sure you guys check your signs. Make sure you guys check that this works, because if it doesn't work, you will get the wrong answer. So the next step, you guys have your two binomials equal to 0. Now, A is not 1. A is 2. So you guys are going to bring down the 2 and 2n. So you guys are going to split up the n squares. There's an n here and another n over here. And then you guys bring down the factors, minus 7 and the plus 4. Now you guys need to check if you guys can divide the binomials by GCF, greatest common factor. So 2 and the 7, they don't have a common factor. 2 and 4, yes, you guys can divide by 2. So the first binomial will stay the same. The second binomial, you guys are going to divide. So I'm going to get 1n, or just n, plus 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2, equal to 0. But we're not done, because we need to factor. Sorry, not factor. We already factored. Now we need to solve. So I'm going to get the first binomial, 2n minus 7 equal to 0. And the second one, n plus 2 equal to 0. So you guys solve for the first equation. Add 7 to both sides. Divide by 2. So we get n equals 7 over 2. And the second one, subtract 2 from both sides. So n equals negative 2. So my two answers, two solutions, will be negative 2 and 7 over 2. So those are my two solutions, answers, because it is a quadratic equation. And I use brackets because they're the values of the variable. And number 13, you guys have another quadratic trinomial. A is 1, so I don't have to worry about factoring something out. There's no negative here, so I'm not going to worry about the negative. And it's already equal to 0. So I'm just going to use the X diagram. I'm going to multiply A, which is 1, times C, which is 42. 1 times 42 is 42. And you guys have a 17 for the B term. So the two factors that work are 14 times 3. When you guys multiply 14 times 3, that's going to be 42. And 14 plus 3 is 17. Make sure you guys don't give up finding those numbers. You guys need to find the numbers that work and double check your signs so everything works in this X diagram. So the next step, you guys are going to have your two binomials equal to 0. So my A value is 1. So you guys bring down the 1x, my factors, positive 14 and the positive 3. So now you guys are going to use the zero product property. So you take the first binomial, 1x, or just x plus 14 equal to 0. And the second one will be x plus 3 equal to 0. So you guys go back and you guys solve. So the first one, subtract 14 from both sides. So x equals negative 14. And the second one, you subtract 3 from both sides. So x equals negative 3. So my two solutions, two answers will be negative 14, comma, negative 3. 14 is a little bit different because you do have a quadratic equation, but you notice that we already have the parentheses, so this is already factored. Now, you might be asking, how do I know it's a quadratic equation if there's no x squared or a variable squared? We have a p, but if you guys multiply 4p times 2p, that's going to be 8p squared. P times another p, you guys will have a p squared. So that's where the square comes in, and it is going to be a quadratic equation. But since it's already factored, don't multiply. You don't want to multiply. You don't want to distribute. You want to use the zero product property. So I'm going to take what's outside of the parentheses. 4p equal that to 0. And then you guys take the second binomial, 2p minus 1 equal that to 0. And then you guys solve. So we didn't factor because it's already factored the quadratic equation, and it's just solving. So for the first equation, divide by 4. So p equals 0. So that's one answer. And the second equation, you add 1 to both sides. So we get 2p equals 1 and divide by 2. So the second answer will be p equals 1/2. So my two answers will be 0, comma, 1/2. And the last question for this review, you guys have two binomials, two parentheses, 4y plus 8 times 3y minus 4 equal to 0. Guess what? This is already factored. Again, if you guys multiply 4y times 3y, that's going to give you 12y squared. So that this is a quadratic equation, but it's already factored. So all you have to do, use the zero product property. So you guys are going to take the first one, 4y plus 8 equal to 0. So that's the first factor. And the second factor, 3y minus 4 equal that to 0, and solve. So for the first equation, subtract 8 from both sides. And then you guys are going to divide by 4. So we get y equals negative 2. So that's the first answer. In the second equation, you add 4 to both sides. So 3y equals 4. Divide by 3. And we get a y value of 4/3. So you guys are going to have your brackets, negative 2, comma, 4/3. All right, guys, so this is the test review for you to get prepared for the test. Make sure you guys practice. Make sure you guys know how to factor. So you guys need to know how to factor out the GCF. You guys need to know how to factor by grouping and also using the X diagram and solving quadratic equations by factoring. The test will be 15 questions, just like the review. And if you guys practice, you will get good at math. So make sure you guys practice and get ready for the test. And I'll see you guys later.